And welcome back to Coast. George Norrie with you, along with Marilynn Hughes, and we will take your calls this hour as we talk about out-of-body and astral projection. And if you've had one of these things occur, or several, just check in with us as well. Marilynn, you're working on a new book as well?
Oh, yes, The Aliens of the Redemption.
Tell me about that for a brief moment.
Oh, that one is the fourth in the series, the Redemption series. There's the Limb of the Redemption, the Christ of the Redemption, the Lord of the Redemption, and now the Aliens of the Redemption. This one goes into the history of how the aliens have visited humankind since the beginning of time, and I've been having these fascinating out-of-body experiences taking me back to pivotal moments in human history and being shown really fascinating moments in these times, and in how these moments have changed human history and religious history, and what it has meant for the alteration of our path as a species.
Interesting take of all of this, to be sure. You're pretty spiritual. Tell me about the title, The Hammer of Mysticism.
Well, The Hammer of Mysticism is a book that I wrote about to go into the basics. It's kind of like an encyclopedic introduction into mystical terms and processes about out-of-body travel, so people can get a real a real elementary understanding of the terms that they're going to come across in all my writings. A lot of people find it very helpful as they start studying, the subject. It explains all these things about energetic law, energetic impetus, and all the basic stuff that you need to start understanding about the paranormal, the basic things that you need to have as a foundational knowledge as you start this journey.
How would you recommend people best astral project or get an out-of-body experience? Meditation? What do you recommend?
Well, there is a series of things that I do recommend, and it really involves a lot of things. A lot of it has to do with, there has to be a lot of quiet time, a lot of silence, but also the process of meditation, prayer time, silent reflection. And, I like to emphasize on the meditation time that people understand that when I'm talking about the meditation, I'm talking about long stretches, because it takes a lengthy amount of time for souls to actually reach the depth that's required to enter into what I call the vibrational state. Most people understand what that is. Mm-hmm. You have to get into the vibrational state in order for you to separate from the physical body. And so I request that people consider finding time for 3 hours of deep meditation. And the meditation, I recommend that you're lying down, because you want to be in a lying down position so that if you do enter the vibrational state, you can separate from the body at that time.
Well, that's probably the best way to go about it, to be sure. Do you astral project often?
Yeah, it's pretty frequent. It's almost nightly.
Do you do it in your dream state as well?
Sometimes it's in the dream state as well, yes, definitely.
Are you alert? I mean, you're fully conscious that you're in an OBE?
Yes, when I'm having out-of-body experiences, that's the case. But, there is always the experiences that I'll have, that a lot of people who have these out-of-body travel experiences have, where you do have partial recollections, or that you've had experiences, but you don't have the full recollection. So I'll have those as well. But when you're having the fully conscious experiences, those are very different from the types of things that people have partial recollection of.
Marilynn, have you ever had an OBE experience that you wish you never had?
Oh, you definitely have experiences that are difficult to have or traumatic, or, especially when you're dealing with things that have to do with spiritual warfare or the things like I've mentioned. Going into some of the hellish realms has been definitely difficult. Some of the things I've seen and experienced in those places has been definitely unexpected.
You wouldn't want to live there, would you?
No, I definitely do not want to go there permanently. That's for sure. And very shocking kinds of things, and things that are definitely some things very different than I think some people might expect, for sure. There's a lot of things that I think people would be surprised by in these experiences, both positive and negative. And so I think that's part of the fascination of the out-of-body experience, is that there is so much more to the experience than we can possibly fathom, because there is so much more out there.
Let's go to the phone. Let's start with Tom in Utica, New York, to get us started. Hey, Tom, welcome to the program.
George and Marilyn, listen, I had a purgatorial experience.
Oh, great, cool. Let's talk about it.
I had I had a double bypass, and my heart would not restart.
Okay.
And so they knocked me out, put me on a trach, and put me into one of those comas. And the first part of the experience was definitely a dream state, definitely dream. I was involved in a midair collision, kind of like in the Satanic Verses by Salman Rushdie.
Wow.
And everything went black, and that was the end of the dream part. And when I awoke, it was not a dream. It was a reality as real as the one that I had left prior to the operation. It was in a place that was very dark, with no individuals present. I do not remember if there was a point of light. That's the only thing I don't remember. But for the next I went under on July 29th, and I returned on August 6th. For this entire time, voices from different parts of this darkness, one side would accuse me of things that I had done in life, and I was very morose. Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, how could I have done that? And then from the other side of the darkness came accusations of something that I had not done. And I became angry and was yelling and screaming, I didn't do that. Where did you hear of that? Yeah, you're full of baloney, to use a phrase. And that went on, alternating during that entire period of time. It was completely exhausting, and then some.
Wow.
And finally, at the end of it, on my birthday, a female voice came and said, and if I don't have the words exactly right, they're pretty doggone close. All right, he's had enough. He's okay. Let him go.
Let him go.
My eyes slowly opened and refocused to my hotel room. My hospital room, with birthday signs, "Happy birthday, Tom," and everything. All over. Back to normal. This world.
Interesting take of that. Who released him, Marilyn? What kind of entity would say that? Let him go.
Well, I think there's a couple of things here that strike me. First of all, he's got the one side where he's got two sides of accusers, which is, happens in these types of experiences. And so the one side is giving him accurate accusations, and he's taking full ownership of it, apologizing and apparently having remorse. The other side is, the demonic side, giving accusations of things he hasn't done, which is very typical of the dark side and the darker evil, which will accuse you of things you haven't done. They will go further. And I think that what was going on was this process of trying to take him into the deeper confusion, the exhaustion. This is a process that the dark side will engage in, And when the voice came in, I think that the voice was coming in to say, okay, he's had enough, which is saying that he's experienced this. It was like an exercise.
He's paid his dues, right?
It was paying his dues, but it was also like he's experienced this. And now I'm curious, when you came out of it, did you feel something different when you came out of it?
Different, very, very different, and my life has changed since. I sort of live like I don't want to have to go back there, but at least for that long. Even though I might have to have another purgatorial type experience. Has
it changed for the better, though, Tom?
What's that?
Has your life changed for the better?
Absolutely. Absolutely, and I keep that in the back of my mind. By the way, right now I have gone from being a bit of a rascal to being a writer of the local Catholic diocese newspaper.
Oh, good for you!
Never missing a holy day of obligation.
Good for you!
Wow, how interesting!
It
too,
does.
Look
it
at
does
that.
change.
Yeah, look at the change there, and so to me, what strikes me is that a bit of a rascal, and here he was being played with by the rascals, the ultimate rascals, a little bit there.
Thank you, Tom. That's fantastic.
Thank you. Yeah, very interesting.
Did you find for yourself too, Marilynn, that you have changed over the years because of this?
Oh my goodness, yes. I mean, I have underwent so many transformations. I think one of the biggest things you will find is it is so humbling because you will go through so many changes. You're shown so many things about yourself, so many of your flaws, so many of your inadequacies. And then, of course, I think in the final analysis, because, I'm like 35 years in, you just realize, the humbling reality that, we are all such flawed human beings. And so you just realize there's always more, you know what I mean? There's always more, things that you're going to learn about yourself that you can improve upon. And, but it's a very humbling experience. And we learn to be, always at the ready for the criticism, for the correction, because when you first start receiving correction, sometimes we don't receive it as well. But as the years go by, we learn that the corrections are so helpful because they really accelerate us. Because when we receive those corrections, we go so much faster because receiving those corrections, it takes like 5 or 10 years of us having tried to discover it on our own off the path, So we learn to appreciate them even though they're unpleasant to receive. We learn to receive them more gracefully, even though we never liked them, So there's this humility that is constantly, hopefully deepening, even though we also realize that even that is hard, to continually do.
Let's go to Joe in Monterey, California. Hey, Joe, go ahead.
Thank you for taking my call, George.
You're welcome.
Marilynn, I do a lot of out-of-body travel, soul travel, actually. In the dream state, I do a lot of lucid dreaming.
Awesome, yeah.
And I do know that I am sometimes in a war because I get injured when I come back. But I had two experiences that are interesting, and I want your opinion on it, but I also want you to talk about the difference between soul travel and astral travel, the benefits, because they have different benefits. Two of these experiences, I used to go to satsang. You know what that is.
Mm-hmm.
And we used to read from a very special book.
Mm-hmm.
And I was asked, because sometimes we read from the book, I was asked to read a paragraph. I read it, and I wasn't reading that paragraph on that book. The teacher said, you're reading it from a higher level, from the soul, from the astral plane. He asked me to read it again, and I read it on a higher level than that, and the third time, even higher than that. So that kind of happens. You're in the body, but you're not here in the body.
Right.
I wonder if that's a form of travel. And also there was something else. We were doing an exercise, a breathing exercise. And it's like a pranayama, but it's a breathing, and you bring light into your body.
Right.
In breath. And I breathe in, and you hold your breath. You know the practice, probably teach it too. And I kept breathing in like an energy or something. It just kept coming in.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And I think that might have been one of my bodies taking in this energy, but I initiated in the physical. So I thought that was interesting. Do you hear about those things?
Oh, yeah, and, those things are things that we go through in the out-of-body travel state very regularly, because you're always wanting to bring in those energies from the spiritual into the physical body. So whether you're breathing in the light or drinking it in, one of the things that I experience a lot is drinking in the life-giving waters, the waters that never end, you know what I mean?
Right.
So it's the never-ending waters, and then it's the light, breathing in the light that you're talking about, the pranayama. But it also happens in other ways. It's the vibrational raisings. It's the different types of initiations where they're taking you into higher and deeper frequencies. You're always trying to bring these higher frequencies, higher light, higher liquid light, all these things from the heavens into the earth, so from the spiritual into the physical realm. So, yeah, that's a big part of it, because everything that we can bring from heaven to earth is spiritualizing the physical, and so that's happening for our own physical body, but it's also something that is an excellent thing for the earth itself. So it's something that is really focused on a lot in the out-of-body travel experience.
Do you find, Marilynn, that being in the astral body plane, that you get energized?
Oh, yeah. There's a great deal of that. And in fact, a huge part of the experience has a lot to do with energy. One of the things I'm always saying to people is knowledge is not information, it's vibration. You discover this very early on, that one of the things that happens is you start having more and more of these vibrational raisings, and it's not just through vibrational raisings, but all these other things and many other things that I talk about in the books as to how this energy is brought to us. We are taught things, they tell us things, we learn things from the masters and the teachers that are spoken to us, but in the end, it is through vibration
it's
that
very powerful.
Things.
Marilynn, we're going to come back and take final calls. And welcome back to Coast. George Norrie with you, our final segment with Marilynn Hughes. Marilynn, thank you, by the way. You've done a great job for us.
Oh, thank you. It's been great being with you again, George. Always love talking with you, and your audience is great.
And when the Alien of Redemption is done, come on back.
I'd love to.
What do you think of prayer and its tie-in to OBEs, if any?
Oh, there's a great deal of tie-in to OBEs, and, that takes me back to one of the really beautiful experiences that I had years ago, where I was shown in one of my out-of-body travels the experience of prayer. And I saw how it ascended into heaven like lightning. It was literally thousands of these lightning strikes from earth to heaven, the prayers of humanity just shooting from earth into the heavens. It was beautiful. It was so powerful to see it. And I've also seen on many other occasions in the out-of-body experience the power of the prayer of people going into the heavens. And I've actually been shown many times the angels receiving prayer. and I've been shown many times as well in cases where miracles were about to be received.
Mm-hmm.
I was shown to whose prayer it was going to be attributed, whose prayer was being received. I remember in particular being very moved that a mother was going to be healed due to the prayers of her children.
Wow. And you knew this was going to happen?
Yes. It was the Blessed Mother had received these prayers from her children. It was beautiful seeing this. And I've seen many things like this, very specific. We don't realize just how personal our prayer is in terms of how it is received in heaven. It's very personal. It's beautiful.
All right, let's take some final calls here with Marilynn Hughes. Let's go to first-time caller Gloria in Whittier, California. Hi, Gloria.
Well, hey there, both of you. Thank you for this honor and all the blessings.
You are very welcome. Go ahead.
Hi, Gloria.
Thank you. Hi, how are you doing, Marilynn?
Great to talk to you, Gloria.
Great to talk with you. Thank you for this opportunity. I have started projecting. I'm in my 70s now, but I was starting to project back in when I was about 4 or 5 years old, and carried it through until I would end up in different places on top of shelves with no ladders, chairs, or any way to go there except for flying. And I believe that my parents put a stop to it with prayers.
Okay.
Because I told them about this, and I think prayers is a lot. But later on, this continued, and I was able. You had mentioned that of taking a couple 3 hours and meditating. I never did that.
Okay.
It seemed that at will I was able to do that. I was able to visit specific people and different places that I had seen in magazines or books. And somewhere along the line, I lost that capability. And, of course, I did not go into the meditation as you had recommended and said that it should be done. And the alternative, I've also had several spirits of people that I've known, some that I've never met, but that I've known visit me. And that stopped as well. And I'm wondering why would that occur? Why would they stop visiting? Why would I stop being able to project myself so easily, so readily?
Do you remember what age it was when that happened?
When what exactly? The last projection that I made was in 1970. Wow. I was in a horrific automobile accident.
52
and
years
I was
ago.
knocked unconscious. And prior to that, for weeks before, I had been telling my mother that I've been having nightmares, that I'm waking up, that I'm hitting a brick wall.
52 years ago, Marilynn.
Okay, so 52 years ago. So it would have been in your 20s?
Would have been about 18 to 20, yeah, right around there.
20?
Yep.
Yeah, so, I mean, there's a lot of reasons why that can happen. Now, sometimes it happens, like, for children when they're younger just because they're growing out of childhood and it's natural that the memory starts ceasing. And it seems like it happened much later for you. And obviously, too, having a traumatic event like the car accident could have had some type of impact that changed whatever it was that made you have this opening to the other side. Now, one of the ways you put it was why they would stop coming to you. I would change the way that you're seeing that in the sense that it seems to me that it would be more likely that the sensitivity that you had to being able to receive that visitation might have changed because it wouldn't necessarily be that they stopped coming, or that if they did stop coming, it would be more because that permission would have been no longer granted. Because we do go through periods, and the deceased go through periods where they're granted the opportunity to visit us, and then that can change. And it changes for a variety of reasons. It can be because of things that are going on in our own life, but it also can change in relation to what's going on in their afterlife. So there will be periods where they will not be allowed to be as close to us because of their own evolutionary journey in the afterlife, where they have to be farther away because they need to have more distance in order to progress in what they're doing as well. So there's all these different factors that can play into that. It's also possible because we do go through, these periods in the spiritual life itself, where the sensitivity itself will change, and it will go through periods of dryness where people will literally just stop having experiences for long periods of time. And this is well documented throughout the history of mystical theology. And so the fact that you then all of a sudden no longer had experiences is not unheard of at all. But I do think the fact that you had this devastating accident is probably more likely related to what happened than even that, because it seems like that might have had some type of impact in terms of the sensitivity itself. Something changed, because there is a physical correlation to our sensitivity sometimes as well. So something could have happened that altered whatever it was that made you so open to this contact. Does that make sense?
Well said, Marilynn. Well
okay.
said. Well said. Next up, let's go to Rick in Whidbey Island, Washington. Welcome to the show. Thanks for holding, Rick.
That's okay. It's going to be worth it. Hi, George and Marilynn. Marilynn, my question is simply this. Have you ever performed any experiments to provide evidence that you've been out of your body? Or, and this happened to me personally, have friends ever told you that you were seen wandering around their house in the middle of the night?
I did participate in the out-of-body experiment, which you can listen to at the website, outofbodytravel.org. It was performed by Alex Securis of Skeptico.com, and you can listen to that at the website. So I did participate in that. Other than that, no, I haven't done that very much. Most of the out-of-body experiences that I will participate in are not going to be focused on the physical realm. So what happens, a lot of people look at the out-of-body experience as, I'm going to go visit somebody in their house. And they're kind of missing the point of the experience. And I want people to start thinking about this in a much broader way. When I'm experiencing out-of-body travel, I'm not thinking of visiting somebody at their house. I can do that in my body.
Right.
I'm going to go visit a higher sphere. That's what I'm going to put the energy towards, because that's where the knowledge is to be gained. That's where the benefit is to be achieved from the experience itself. And so we don't really need to go prove anything to anybody about this. It really doesn't serve that big of a purpose to do that. The purpose to be achieved is that spiritual impetus, that acceleration of the spiritual evolution that the process provides us. So we want to put our attention there, and that's where I put my attention in the out-of-body travel experience.
Marilynn, in an out-of-body experience, can you go into the future?
You can, actually. You can. There are times when it is allowed where you can see different aspects of it. It's not like It's not always granted. It's not like something that you're allowed to do just at will, it doesn't seem. But there are times when it is granted for particular purposes. There have been different points where, interestingly, it was presented to me as for the importance and for the circumstance of completing the sacred hoop, which had to do with bringing together my past and my future and my present. And I was allowed to, connect with my future self. It was like my elderly self and my current self at the time, which is about 10, 20 years ago. And it's been different points along the way to make sure that I would reach different points along my path so that my destiny would be achieved. And so there have been points where I would reach the future. But also, something that some people don't think of when you're talking about past lifetimes, you also will go into lifetimes that are either past lifetimes that might actually have occurred in the future. And sometimes people don't think of that, sure, but we do have those.
Let's go to Don, Studio City, California. Hey, Donald, go ahead.
Hey, George. Passed the Great Greek today. I thought of you. In fact, I do every time, man.
Perfect.
My sister and I grew up in the late 50s, early 60s, and just had unbelievable illnesses and allergies to penicillin. So we got sick, lived in oxygen tents for the longest time, and as I got older and tried to deal with other things in my life, I started remembering and realizing these amazing floating on the ceiling, watching things happen. And I remember, as well as my sister and I finally have agreed that we did, using it to escape like this fear and pain thing. And now I'm here in this point in my life. I've been pretty successful, and yet, as much I want to be able to apply things in a structure like you're talking about. I'm married to a tenured college professor, so I'm comfortable with the structure that you're talking about. Yet there's a whole other thing that just happens, and I don't know. I'm not religious. I'm not anything, but I believe so deeply. Yet today was one of those days, I have to say, that this is the ultimate coda. I've listened for decades, and here I am on the radio, but only because of this out-of-body thing. It's back in my life. Doesn't mean anything like I want to get out of my present, but what a difference. It's not just out-of-body. It's other dimensional. For us, it was survival.
What do you think, Marilyn? We got a minute left.
Well, I think absolutely. And, one of the things you can try with that is just take a look. One of the things you can do to start is take a look at the Mysteries of the Redemption at my website. It'll start you with that structure you're talking about and see how it feels. It might take you through that. And I think that could be a place to start. I think it could help you with what you're talking about. And see how it goes. I think it could work for you.
Marilyn, give out your website for folks.
Outofbodytravel.org.
And when they go to that, what do they get?
You're going to find that you can download all of our books there. Click on our YouTube channel. You can watch all our films. We have tons of free stuff that you can check out, resources on out-of-body travel. And you can also email me if you have any questions. And all your films are free to watch, aren't they? Absolutely. Yep. Good for you. All right, and when the next book on aliens is done, you know where to go. That's right. I'm going to give you a call, George. All right, Marilyn, thanks for being on the program. Thank you for having me. It's been great talking to you, George. You take care of yourself. Up next, we'll be talking with Joseph Marino about his work about the Shroud of Turin. If you are not familiar with the Shroud of Turin, it is the burial cloth that Jesus apparently was buried in.